In this video, we will look into different tasks you can accomplish using prompt engineering and where you can use such tasks in different applications or industries. We'll look into all of this using a notebook. So first is you need to install OpenAI library. So you will do pip install OpenAI and then you will add your OpenAI key. Now I have created a helper function called as get completion. What this will do is it will take your prompt as an input. It will take a default model as GPT 3.5 Turbo. You can use a different model like GPT-4 here, and then it will use the chat completion API to run the prompt, and it will give you back the response. Note here that we have kept the temperature as 0. We'll run this helper function. The first task we will look is called as classification. The first use case within classification is something known as sentiment analysis of product review. Now, this is very common use case in e-commerce industry where the business wants to understand different sentiment of their products. The sentiment of different products will help them improve the decision making and create a different marketing strategies. So let's look at one such example where we want to classify the product review into either neutral, negative, or positive. So we'll write our review and we'll expect a sentiment from a model. So as we run this prompt, we get a positive response from the model. The next use case within classification is called as a few shot text classification. This few shot text classification is really important when you have a very difficult output format which has been ingested by your downstream application. And here we will use few shot prompt as we looked into our last video. Here we will look one such customer support scenario where we want to classify the customer questions into three parts: category 1, 2, and 3. The category 1 is about car insurance, category 2 is about flood insurance, category 3 is not relevant to the insurance question. We have given a couple of examples and then we have asked the question, what type of car coverage do you offer? Now, since we have given the questions in a very specific format and output in a very specific format, this is called as a few shot prompting. When we give examples, you will get a proper answer from the model, which you can then ingest into the downstream application. The next task we will look into is called as expanding. Within expanding, the use case we'll look into is called as creative writing with AI. Now, this creating writing is important in areas of media industry where you want to generate stories, contents, or creative ideas. This you can do theme wise and constraint wise. So let's look at one such example. We are saying that you write a short love story between two characters named Tom and Jerry. We are giving two constraints here. So the one constraint is that it should not be more than 3 or 4 sentences. The other constraint is that it should end with tragedy. So let's try and run this. As you can see, the model has given us a story with 3 or 4 sentences, and it has ended the story with a tragic ending. The next use case we'll look into is collaborative storytelling with AI. Now, this use case is particularly looking into how we can brainstorm ideas or how we can complete the storytelling when you have some context with you. So let's take an example here where you have initial sentence of that story, but you want to complete rest of the story by a model. So we are saying that write a short story. You have initial sentence available with you and you want your model to generate the next sentence or the next part of the story from here on. As you can see, it has now completed the story from where we left. The next task is called as summarization. The use case which we'll look into summarization is automated summarization. Automated summarization is very, very useful for content creators, readers, or those who want to take quick insights from a very big article or research paper. This will save a lot of time and effort. So let's look at one such example where we take the above story, what we have written, and we want to convert that into a single sentence or want to summarize into a single sentence. So we give the story and we tell that please summarize this into a single sentence. As you can see, the model has now summarized it into a very single sentence. The use case number 6 is point-wise summarization. Here, what we'll do is we'll take the above story which we have written. Now we want it into a point-wise summary. So as you can see, the model has now converted the entire story into a point-wise summary. This is useful into research and educational industry where there is a long text available, but you want to summarize important points. The next task is translation. So in the translation task, you want to translate single sentence into multiple languages. One such example is where you have your website in English, but now you want to translate your entire website into multiple languages. So let's take an example where you ask a model to translate something from English to Spanish and you write a sentence, how are you? And then it converts into Spanish. Now, the other prompt is that I want to translate into multiple languages from English, Spanish, Japanese, and Hindi. So this will translate from English to Spanish, Japanese, and Hindi. Now I have two sentences where I want to translate. Now, as you can see, the model has translated a sentence into multiple languages, but we want it into a very specific format. So what we can do is we'll update our prompt and we say that we want original sentence and then we want translated versions. So here is the model output where you have the original sentence and then you have multiple versions of the output. The next use case we'll look into is called question answering. In question answering, you have a really long body or context and you want to ask very specific questions out of this context. So let's take one example where I have a context about opening ceremony and I have a question why there was a moment of silence was observed. So now I write a prompt saying that write answers strictly based on the text. If the text is not sufficient, say sorry, I don't know. So I will run this prompt based on this question. As you can see, the model has responded with a proper answer. So now in the next question, what I'm asking is on which song mastering LLM has performed in opening ceremony. Since this answer is not available in the context, it will say, sorry, I don't know. The next task is about conversation AI. Now, conversation AI is really useful in multiple applications like customer support, content generation, education, virtual assistant, or information retrieval. So let's take one example where I'm asking a bot, you only answer questions on biology and then decline to answer if there is any questions apart from biology. One of the great feature about conversation AI and large language model is that it's very versatile in nature. It can handle broad spectrum of tasks and also it can adapt to different conversation styles and domains. Let's try this example. You ask, how can you help me? It can give you answer. You ask a very specific question about biology, you will get an answer. And you ask something about EPL and it will not answer to you. As you can see, it has also an ability to store all of your previous conversations. This is one of the features about conversation AI. The next task is about code generation. Now, code generation has multiple different applications: automated scripting, prototyping, problem solving, code documentation, data processing, code translation. So if your code is in Java and you want to convert it into Python, or task automation like web scraping, data extraction, report generation. All of these are possible with this task. So let's see how can we write one such prompt. So we'll write that you have to write a code to extract just user tag from the input string and the output from below text. So what you want to do is you need to just extract this user tag, right? And the expected answer output answer is question 1, how can you help me? This is the first user tag. Question 2 is the second user tag. So I'll run this prompt. Here is how the model has responded. So it has given you the input string and it has given you a code to try and extract these answers. Let's try this code. So as you try this code, it will be able to parse the output and you have a Python code ready for it. So use case number 11 involves um, logical reasoning and reading comprehension, where you have given context and you have given multiple choice questions and you want to find out which one is correct based on the scenario. This can be used in educational assessment, employee assessment, research and analytical review, decision making task, or cognitive assessment. So let's take one such example from a logic QA dataset. So you have a passage and then you have a question to identify which one is true based on 4 different kind of scenarios. Now, as you run this model, you would see that the model is able to identify option D, which is correct, and it has given the reason as well. In the next video, we will look into how can we avoid hallucinations in large language models.